Hi, Gary Pagenstecker. We're tied to these two mics together, so it's kind of a hat trick, but I think we can manage it. I'm with the Community Development Department, a project planner, and I had an idea to look at solar more closely in the city probably 10 years ago. And for whatever reason, didn't have traction then, but a couple of years ago, an opportunity came up with a funding opportunity to look at the feasibility of microgrids in the city. So the Community Development Department is also been in a couple of years of the community, carbon responsible community development. That's kind of the banner that we're working under as a department in the city to integrate all of our practice in being carbon responsible. So the Tigard Resiliency Initiative, which I launched a couple years ago, yielded results just recently in a study which would have a microgrid here, and I realize that probably needs some definition, but basically solar power and battery storage linked to the grid and can be islandable from the grid when it's no longer working. That's a sort of definition of a microgrid. And we, I see there's a question. That's a very forward-looking notion in that question. And yes, the initiative contemplated a building scale microgrid, a neighborhood scale, like you might be suggesting, and a district scale, like all of downtown and the environs, for example. And technically it's possible to connect distributed energy resources, like you're suggesting, where the library would be one. Other houses or government buildings could be others. It's complicated because it relies on the way that the grid is set up and the feeder system that PGE operates. So in order to do it, you have to really be thinking in terms of investment and grid edge technologies, which could be economical given the alternatives of, more transmission, which is really costly, et cetera, et cetera. So lots to unpack there. We don't have time for that. This is kind of just an introductory commentary that we have. The city has embraced solar energy and distributed energy resources and battery storage for resilience in this building for the whole community to use. And sorry, this is a slide showing in blue where the solar PV panels would go on the roof and in the parking lot on canopies to generate about 500 kilowatts for then be fed back to the grid or stored in the battery. So this is our initial effort at the city being solarizing, but we also are participating in Solar City, which is, Sol Smart, which is a program to really reduce the friction for permitting for solar, rooftop solar in the city altogether. So if you're interested in solar on your roof, the city's doing everything it can right now to make that easier and cheaper to do. And that the vision is really to have distributed energy resources, for example, to 50 megawatts by 2050 or 2030 and 160 megawatts by 2050 when the city hopes to be greenhouse gas neutral. And that's a lot. We have about 8 megawatts now, so lots to go. This is an example of how the city is getting its own house in order, and we invite you, the general public, to follow along and join an energy transition that we have to do together. So at this point, I want to hand it off. And we have two companies here which are expert in all of these things, and you can learn much more detail from them.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole. I'm with Solar Oregon. How are y'all doing tonight? Good. Okay, I got a lot of thumbs up. I think that's pretty good for a rainy Thursday. So thank you for coming. Today, Solar Oregon is going to be sharing with you how solar works, as well as how home battery storage works. We'll also talk about how you can find a contractor that matches your goals, and also review current incentives. And then Oregon Clean Power Co-op, which we have Ari and Doug here today, who will be presenting on that. We'll share about co-op solar, as well as community solar, how those work, some project examples, and talk about what projects are open right now and investments are available and how you can get involved. Yeah, I like that, yay! So a little bit more about Solar Oregon. We are a 50C3 nonprofit. We're member-based, and we've been around since 1979. So we've been teaching people about solar energy for a while. And our mission really is to educate the community in Oregon about what their options are for solar and home battery storage, so that we can make it easier for you to go solar and we can increase solar adoption throughout the state. We have webinars monthly and workshops like these, so come to those events if you enjoyed tonight. Here's some more ways you can get involved. So attending an event like this one, you can network with other solar enthusiasts, advocate for pro-solar policies, as well as signing up for our newsletter. If you guys sign in today here, we can also connect you with that newsletter, and it has our current events as well as what's going on in solar here in our state. And now that I've kind of introduced myself, I would love to know a little bit more about you all in the room today. Who is familiar, by a show of hands, with solar and home battery storage? Okay, great. Who has solar on their home? And does anyone have battery storage? All right. And then, is anyone familiar with co-op and community solar already? Okay, great, great. Well, you all came to the right place. We're gonna try to get some of those questions answered and make it a little easier for you to make a decision about how you can get involved in solar at your home. So solar energy is electricity generated from the sun. Solar does work in Oregon, even though we get rain and clouds, and even though we get that, we still get sun, and we'll talk a little bit later about a process, net metering, that helps us take most advantage of those sunny days. And then solar can help you save money on your energy bill. It can help make your home more energy resilient. So there's a lot of reasons that solar can benefit you and your home. So here are some examples of rooftop solar. That's the most common that you'll see in residential areas, that it'll be roof mounted. There is also ground mounted solar. And then you can see here, these systems are all different. Solar is highly customizable, so you really want to consider what your goals are and communicate that with your contractor when your system is getting designed. This is a diagram of what a grid-tied solar system looks like. So you can see in the middle is the little home, and if you go to the left, you can see the photovoltaic panel, or PV panel. And so just generally how this would work is the sun would strike the PV panel, and then a voltage of electricity would be created, called DC electricity. And this would then get converted to AC electricity with the inverter or microinverter. And then that AC would flow into your breaker box and be able to be used by the outlets and appliances in your home. When you decide to go solar and you're grid tied, you also will get a special meter called a bidirectional meter. And this will be measuring the flow of electricity from your home that you produce that goes out to the grid. And then if you need to purchase any energy from the grid, it'll measure that as well. And so I mentioned net metering earlier, and so net metering is that process of measuring how much electricity you send back out onto the grid, and what it does is it'll measure that so you can gain credits. And these credits will show up on your energy bill. And so with that, we'll look at two examples. You'll see a summer month on the left, and on the right, a winter month. So net metering years run from April 1st through March 31st. And so it's starting when we're getting more sun. So you can build up those credits. So you can see on a typical summer month, you can produce more solar as you can access more solar resource. So that bar in orange shows, hey, this is what I'm producing in the summer. And then you can see your consumption is represented by the blue bar. And so that difference between those is your net metering credit earned. And so that'll show up on your bill in your credits. And you basically make a bank of these, and then you can pull from that in the winter months. So if we look at that winter month example, you can see, hey, it's rainy or cloudy, and I can't produce as much solar, but I've built up this bank of credits that I can utilize when I need to draw from the grid. So that is an exciting way to leverage those sunny months that we have and be able to use those credits when we have less solar resource. Pretty simple and just an exciting thing to take advantage of. I am going to transfer over to my colleague, Abby, and she's going to share the rest about Solar Oregon.
Thank you, Nicole. So now that you've learned about how you can generate some extra power and save money on your electricity bill with net metering, how do you know if your home is right for solar? So unfortunately, not every single home is going to be the best candidate for solar, and there's a lot of things that can go into that. One easy one is how your roof is doing. If you're looking at roof-mounted solar, you want your roof to be in really good condition. You don't want to have to take your solar panels down in order to replace your roof. That will take extra money, and there's a large potential of your solar panels breaking in that process. For that reason, we recommend that you have at least 20 years of life left on your roof when you decide to get solar. Next, it matters what's under your roof. So not only what's the condition of the stuff on top of it, but what's under it. Solar panels obviously add some extra weight to your roof. So if you're going to be putting those up there, you want to make sure your roof has the correct supports in order to handle that weight. By most stringent rules in different cities, you have to have trusses. Sometimes only rafters can be okay, but your solar contractor can take a look at your roof and see if you would need to add any extra supports. If you do need to add extra supports, that can also be an added cost on your solar system due to having to have an engineer come out and put in those supports. Lastly, there is how much solar access you have. So generally in Oregon, like Nicole was saying, we get plenty of sun. However, there's also lots of really gorgeous old trees here. And so if your home's really well shaded, you are not going to be a great candidate for solar. However, given all this, there are still some great options for you to engage in the solar market through co-op or community solar, which is what our friends at OCPC are going to be covering next. But first, we're going to talk a little bit more about rooftop solar. So given all this about rooftop solar, the next question you might be considering is whether or not you need a battery. So an important misconception is that solar alone does not allow you to use power when the grid is down. That's because they have to shut off, make sure no power is flowing back to the grid while they're doing maintenance on it in order to not shock any electricians. In order to use power when the grid is down, you need to have a battery. So battery will add an extra cost, but can be a really great thing to invest in if you want to have what's known as energy resilience or the ability to use power when the grid is down. Now, it is also important to set your expectations about what a battery can do for your home. So it's important to consider what type of outage you're preparing for. Short outages, such as those caused by storms or a squirrel chewing on the wire, or power safety shutoffs like happen during the summer when there's high fire danger, can be very short, and it's relatively easy to get a battery that will allow you to back up your home for that amount of time. However, if you want to back up your entire home for the length of a large outage, such as one caused by the Cascadia seismic hazard, that can be prohibitively expensive. So to do that, what a lot of people choose to do is instead create a essential loads panel so that only the circuits that are put onto that essential loads power receive power when the grid is down. The rest, so usually what is typically selected is a fridge, some lights in common areas, and maybe an outlet or two. You're not going to be powering your dryer or a hot tub because that will just drain your battery before it has a chance to actually help you survive whatever outage you're preparing for. So now, given all this information, how do you choose a contractor if you want to go solar? What I recommend using is the Energy Trust of Oregon Trade Ally tool. This is a tool that allows you to put in your address and get back up to 3 quotes from Trade Ally contractors in your area who already know the Energy Trust rules and regulations and will therefore be able to allow you to get the incentives that I'm going to be talking about next. But they've already been vetted and they will give you a bid and give you some information about your site and can even come out and take a look at it in person if you would like. So now that I've shown you all this information about how solar works, how do you pay for it? There are 2 main incentives that are used to cover the cost of solar. The first is from the Energy Trust of Oregon. In order to access the Energy Trust of Oregon incentives, you do have to have your solar installed by a Trade Ally contractor. So that's one of the reasons I suggested that for how to pick your contractor. We want to get you as much money off the solar system as possible. And that is just a flat incentive that is taken off the price of your system, and you don't have to do anything extra than pick a Trade Ally contractor to get that incentive off the total price. Your contractor does all the applications and receives that incentive for you and just detracts it from your total. The next is the federal tax incentive. This is a 30% dollar-for-dollar tax incentive that you can apply for on your taxes, and you are ultimately responsible for applying for it. Very quickly, I am not a tax expert. This is not official tax advice, and do not treat it as such. Please contact a tax expert if you have any really in-depth questions about it. But I will tell you that there are some common misconceptions with the federal tax incentive, chiefly that re-roofing costs can be covered under it, and that is unfortunately not true. So if you need to re-roof in order to get solar, that cost is not a part of that 30%. But otherwise, your system price, 30% of that you can get back as a dollar-for-dollar tax refund, or not refund, decrease is what it would be. You won't get a check back, but you can decrease your tax liability by 30% of your solar system price. In addition to that, it's very common to get loans. Those can be offered by your contractor, a bank, or a local credit union, and there are also some loans that you are able to refinance after you claim your federal tax incentive. So there's some really great options for you no matter what. Now, if rooftop solar isn't the right option for you, there are other options you can take first. You can focus on energy efficiency, just decreasing the amount of draft and increasing the amount of insulation in your home can make a really big difference as to the amount of power you need in general and lower the strain you're putting on the grid and how much electricity you need. Home repairs can do the same thing. Fixing the leaky faucet or resealing a door can make a really big difference. And there's also community solar, which is where I'm going to pass it off to OCPC.
Thanks, Abby. Hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is Ari Simmons, and I'm the Communications Manager for Oregon Clean Power Co-op. At the co-op, we have the motto, think globally, invest locally, and we've been helping Oregon communities for just about 10 years now be powered by solar energy. We have about 40 projects throughout the state, totaling about 4 megawatts of power and more in development each day. So we're really excited to be here to present to you 2 different models of cooperative and community solar. So both of these models help address needs. By show of hands, how many of you think that you face a barrier of access to solar, whether it be rent, your roof isn't suitable, or maybe the price of solar is too high and you're concerned about financing? Yeah, this is a really common problem, and our organization is designed to help address these 2 things. I'm going to talk about co-op solar, and I'll pass the mic over to Doug to talk more about community solar programs. So how we've designed our model is that we're a co-op, so essentially we are member-owned. So to be an owner in the co-op, you essentially invest in a solar project. This project can be on many different entities. Could be on the library, could be a school, could be a church. And essentially your investment goes toward addressing some funding gaps in that project. We, as the co-op, help build and own the solar array, and then we sell that power back to the co-op members, and you receive a check annually for the project. And then once the project is completely paid off and all of the members have their investment returned to them, then that entity owns that solar project. So it's a little bit of a different model, but it's definitely effective in making sure that we are getting solar built on our community buildings as quickly as possible. And here are some examples of where co-op funding is really useful and helpful. So we're founded in Corvallis, Oregon, so a large portion of our projects are there. This is Corvallis High School. Funny enough, this project had a very small grant, and it had a 2.1 kilowatt system, which is tiny. It's the first little row of panels you see there. And obviously the school needed more power, so we partnered with them, and now they have a 125 kilowatt system. So you can see really the expansive power of solar. And then we are also partners with Oregon State University. This is their facilities building, and you can see they have a larger system. This is 358 kilowatts on their roof, helping powering their facilities. We also partner with governments, like the City of Tigard for Tier 1 project, the library project, but we also partner with governments all around the state. Benton County in Corvallis, this building is their operations building, their office building. They built this in 2020, and they actually built it with the goal to go net zero. So by partnering with us, we help them get solar to help achieve that in their goals and planning. And then Rogue Valley Council of Governments is another example of a project. This one's a little bit smaller, but we definitely are working with a number of municipalities to address their energy needs and their goals. We also partner with faith communities. Raise your hand if you think your faith community has a solar array. We want to change that. So over here, the Alton Collins Retreat Center, this is actually part of the United Methodist Church out in Sandy, Oregon, and this serves as a place of refuge for people. This serves as a retreat center, a meditation center, a place of prayer, and we're able to power over half of their facilities costs at this retreat center with this solar array, this 150 kilowatt system. And we also partnered with St. Andrew's Lutheran Church out in Beaverton to install solar on their roof as well. And nonprofits. Nonprofits need solar too. And maybe some of you recognize this if you are in Portland. This is the Mazamas Mountaineering Center. This is actually in my neighborhood in Portland. It's a long-standing nonprofit that was founded out on, I believe, Mount Hood. And walking back from Laurelhurst Park, I actually get to see this right in my community. And it's really great, kind of like beacon of light for my neighborhood. And of course, we partner with libraries and other nonprofit entities like out in Lakeview, Oregon.
So I know what some of you might be wondering. Okay, so this co-op model, right? Like how does this fit into the larger funding picture of these projects? As you know, these projects are not cheap, but luckily our state does offer some really great tax incentives. We are also able to leverage a lot of utility grants for these types of projects. And you can see the utility grants is the blue color, and then the tax credits are the orange color, so that's a good chunk of the puzzle. Often the nonprofit or building that we're working with or entity that we're working with will also contribute some funding, and that's the green. And then sometimes we'll get funding from Energy Trust of Oregon, and that represents the little blue at the top. And then sometimes, of course, community donations, depending on which project we're working on. But that gray right there is the community investment piece. That is essentially your investment in the community and your participation in solar energy. And as you can see, that's not a small gap. So a lot of these projects do need that extra push to get going, and it's really up to us to build the future that we really want to see for our communities and by our communities. So we do this through a crowd vesting model, as I kind of explained earlier. To become a member of the co-op, it's a $1,000 minimum investment. If you have more and you want to contribute more, you absolutely can. We put that right toward a solar project that we have currently in development. And then you're paid back annually, like I mentioned, and you can choose your rate of return, whether it's 1% or 4%. I believe the median is about 2%, so people aren't totally eager to get their money back quicker. They really are investing in these projects because they wholeheartedly believe in them. And then, as I mentioned, we provide annual repayments over the course of 10 years, and then once you're fully paid back for your investment, that entity, the school, the libraries, are owners of the projects in perpetuity. But that isn't your only solar option here in Oregon. I'm going to pass it over to Doug to talk a little bit more about community solar.
Thank you, Laura. I have to use the dual mic system because I'm on closed circuit television. Rockstar time. Thanks. Thanks very much. So I want to differentiate between a direct investment in a solar energy project that could go on school, church, library, where you are an investor / owner through the co-op. So the co-op is arranging the financing, we develop the project, we raise the funding, and then we manage the project. Now, when we come to community solar, again, same opportunity to participate, but now you're getting a reduction in your energy bill. You are a subscriber instead of an investor. So again, I just want to make that distinction here. And again, we'll have time for Q&A later, but it's a way for you to participate in a solar project if you don't have a solar resource, if you're a renter, or if it's just you're a member of the community and you want to support solar. And through the community solar program, you can lower your, in this case, I think we're in PGE territory. So PGE would be the public utility that would make that rate adjustment to your monthly electric bill as a subscriber. And the discounts can vary depending on your income category. But, to this slide, the participating, well, this could actually work for either community solar or co-op solar. You participate, you're actually, in a sense, purchasing a panel, in this case, Mark or Juan, and then that energy can be going to a food bank, or it can be going to another subscriber who does not, again, have a solar resource available to them on their home or their apartment building. So yes, different ways to invest and participate in these larger scale projects. And typically with community solar, we're looking at several hundred kilowatts is where the economics really make sense. So the subscription to get the people to participate in the subscribers can take a little bit longer, but the projects are larger and have a greater impact in terms of taking carbon out of the environment. So how community solar works, you would, as I was describing, you sign up as a subscriber. The solar project generates solar energy. It goes to the grid, so it's not going to the meter as would a typical co-op solar project where it's feeding the facility, the school, the library, the church that project's on. This community solar project would typically be in it could be in a public location, it could be an industrial site, but the electricity that project is producing is going to the grid, not to the meter on a specific building. And then the beauty part for the subscriber is that you receive a bill credit. Why isn't everyone doing this? I don't know. I'm still wondering. This is one of our recent projects that was completed at Oregon State University, just down the road, actually. It's called Solar Harvest, and it's a 320 kilowatt community solar project that we partnered with the Oregon State University Agricultural Department with. So the co-op and Oregon State University placed this project over an agricultural test site to see which crops would thrive in shade. And so they have the panels spaced in about 10 acres, spaced wide enough of parts of the agricultural, the tractors and so forth can still do their job, but they can compare how these crops are doing partially shaded or full sun. And it turns out they're already getting some pretty interesting results. And this project, I believe, fully subscribed now. Is that right? Also in PG territory. So 300 kW, 320 kW, that's the equivalent of about, let's call it 40 homes, 40 to 50 homes. So this is a program that requires the cooperation of the major utilities in the state of Oregon. Through the Public Utility Commission, PGE and Pacific Power must display the credits on your bill, but it's really not a program of the utilities. So we are, again, developing these projects, managing these projects, and then responsible for getting the subscribers to complete the project. And then once we have all the subscribers, we can actually start selling the power back to the grid. So as I said, the co-op acts as the developer. So once we are working with in this case, a municipality would be the client, City of Tigard, and decide where is the best location. In this case, the City of Tigard has done most of the heavy lifting, for years in hiring the engineers and the and the solar installer to, determine some really good sites to put solar PV. One of them would be the new roof of the library once that roof is installed. So that's probably sometime in 2025. But there's, as you saw on that initial slide, there's also an opportunity to put some carport solar out here, which could be 200 to 250 kW, which is a fairly substantial amount of solar energy. So together, between the rooftop and the carport, you'll be supplying over 50% of the energy load for the library here. And then, so we're developing the project. We need to put the financing together. This is probably an opportunity for you as citizens to directly participate as an investor, perhaps as a purchaser of power. And then for the life of the project, we will help in management of the project as well. These two projects are open for investment. So Oregon State University, Milam Hall, that's going to be a rooftop project. Richardson Hall as well. So both coming on stream this year. So if you want to, if you're maybe any Oregon State graduates here want to, or just people who like solar and want to invest, you don't have to have any direct affiliation. So please talk to us about this later. But exciting times. And you know, as with Oregon State University, we're excited to have a partnership with the city of Tigard. And again, this is a great place to be for you as citizens who want to participate in solar energy. As Gary mentioned, they're making it easy to, or easier to put solar on your roof, and then you have some of these projects coming on stream in the next couple of years where you can either A, directly invest, or B, have a reduction on your bill and participate that way. And our next presentation, as we talk more about resiliency and the city of Tigard generating a microgrid model. Our next presentation is May 23rd. We hope you'll be able to join us. Meanwhile, if you have any questions for me or my colleagues at Solar Oregon, please ask away.
Great, and I think we're at time. We have our emails up here, and we OregonCleanPower.coop is our website, SolarOregon.org is our website. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Instagram. Send us a message if there's anything we didn't get to today, and we'll stick around a little bit after to answer any questions that didn't get answered.
And please do consider coming to the next presentation in May. There'll be more talk about improving the library and making it a more reliable backup emergency operations center, but also the library as an example for the whole city as a pilot project for a substantial microgrid. It's an oxymoron, but there you go. So May 23rd, tell your friends, we'll be building up to a really big event in September. Anyway, thanks for coming. Drive safe.